courtesy of Jay Swavey.
From fans for the fans.
The best place for league updates.
The hottest takes on the internet. Welcome to Cal's Call. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Cal's Call. Today, I'm going to be doing Cal's Call on the NFL Power Rankings going into Week 1. So I have my list here. I'm going to go off, give my reasoning as to how I labeled, how and why I ranked each team as such, and just go forth from there. So we're going to start from the bottom today, and then we'll work our way up to the top. So at number 32, I have the Buffalo Bills. This is pretty common amongst media to have the Bills slated this low. There's not much expectations going into this year. Their first round pick, Josh Allen, obviously is not ready to start in the NFL yet. Surprisingly, I wasn't expecting it. They traded away A.J. McCarron to the Oakland Raiders. Well, now Oakland Raiders. They're still Oakland Raiders. So now their starting quarterback is going to be Nathan Peterman, the guy who threw 5 interceptions to the Los Angeles Chargers last year in his first career start. I'm not holding that against him. He could come back and have a great season, but I'm not expecting him to have the best season, kind of just an adequate, mediocre quarterback, and they probably will end up starting Josh Allen way too soon, but that's kind of out of necessity because their quarterback stable is not the best. Their defense has some great players. I really like Tre'Davious White. They still have Lorenzo Alexander, and I still think there's a lot of hope for Shaq Lawson to become a pretty decent edge rusher for them. So there's some talent there on the defensive end. They also have first-round pick Edmonds out of Virginia Tech. So again, lots of talent, but it's young talent outside of Alexander. It's a lot of young talent that still needs to grow together, gain chemistry, and I just don't think their roster is ready yet. By far and away, they are the least talented team in the NFL in terms of readiness. Moving on to the next team that I'm going to have, they have a little bit more veteran presence there, which is going to help them throughout the NFL season. Still not going to be a great team, but at least there's a veteran presence there. And that's going to be the New York Jets. So the Jets, they're going to be starting Sam Darnold, the rookie, at quarterback in Week 1. Pretty bold move for a franchise that has not been able to find their franchise quarterback in the past decade. Even past then. It's been a long time since New York has had a viable starting quarterback who is, how could I say, upper class in the NFL. So to have Darnold, there's a lot of hope and optimism that he can become that quarterback for them, especially with him starting going into Week 1. I think with that, though, in mind, that he's going to struggle a lot with his turnovers this year. He's not very turnover prone in college, but he had a turnover problem in college. Wasn't the worst, but wasn't the best. That's a better way to describe his turnover issues. But that's only going to be more apparent in the NFL with the defensive backs and the talent that's there. So I think he will struggle with that a lot. I think out of the gate, it's not going to be a great season. And I think unless they surprisingly start off hot, that this is not going to be a great record for them this year. Darnold's going to provide a lot of excitement for fans if he does okay. If he busts, then we'll be seeing them look at quarterback prospects next year. But again, it's always too early to tell on a person's first year. I mean, Jared Goff looked absolutely horrid his first year, but you can't just judge off of such a small sample size. So we'll see. Sam Darnold's definitely the only really big storyline for the Jets this year. Outside of him, there's Leonard Williams, who I'm a big fan of, also out of USC. Go Trojans. He's going to be on the defensive line. That's a good star player to look out for, but not a lot of excitement around any of the other parts of that roster. They also have McCown, who's again a veteran quarterback. I think he's going to be a great leader in that locker room, and if anything, he'll help them not have the worst record in the NFL. But we will see. Next up at 30, I have the Miami Dolphins. Again, if we're talking about not that much excitement going for a team, this is the Dolphins. The head coach, Adam Gase, I think he's going to be gone after this year. I definitely see a new regimen being the answer to this franchise's problems. I know they keep having these roster turnover, coaching turnover, but they have to do that until they finally find somebody who is excitable and can get them back to the playoffs. Gase, I think, was a better offensive coordinator than he is head coach by far and away. He hasn't really been able to do that much. I think it was a mistake to bring in Cutler last year. Cutler didn't provide really much anything for them outside of a couple highlight plays. And I think Tannehill will be a lot better, but by Jay Cutler standards. I think by NFL starting quarterback standards, Tannehill's still pretty low on those rankings. He could prove me wrong, and he's a great guy, so hopefully he does. But I don't see it happening. A lot of people are hyping up Kenyon Drake as their starting running back. I don't see it. I don't see the hype behind him. I'm not really sold on him yet. They do have some great young talent, though. If you look at Kenny Stills, one of their wide receivers, big fan of him. Well, it's Devontae Parker. I think this is Devontae. It seems like we've said this for the past 2 seasons, but Devontae Parker, this is definitely his last straw, like his last make or break season. If Parker does not prove that he can be a wide receiver 1 or at least a strong wide receiver 2, then I don't think he's going to have a place on this team after this year. I'm very excited about the rookie, Micah Fitzpatrick, for them out of Alabama. I think he's going to have a strong year. That defense could definitely use some work. I think that it's going to be a struggle on that side for them. I think there's still just a lot of gelling that has to take place on that side of the ball. And the offense is just lacking, how can I say this, leadership to a degree. I think if they had a couple more veterans, it'd help them out. I think Frank Gore is at least a good veteran to start with, but I think a handful more would definitely help this roster with a better record. I think they could be, again, I don't see that much excitement around this roster as a whole, but there are a couple players that could stand out throughout the year and at least win them a handful of games that would keep them from having a bottom 2 record. Moving on to the next team, a lot of people might disagree with me here, but I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be number 29, at least for me. I see Patrick Mahomes. I like him as a quarterback prospect. I think he's going to have a great statistical year. A lot of turnovers, but at least a lot of touchdowns to go with that. This team has some explosive firepower. Obviously, they have Kareem Hunt, great bell cow back. They have Tyreek Hill, a great gadget player, gadget weapon. And I don't think he can be limited to a gadget weapon. I think he can be a strong wide receiver 2, possibly wide receiver 1. But for now, I still see him in that gadget role. Unless he can break out this season, I don't think he's going to, though. I think he's going to be, if anything, a little bit less productive than he was last year because defenses are going to target him more. We have Sammy Watkins, who went out there from Los Angeles. He's going to be a good big body target for Patrick Mahomes. And then we obviously have Travis Kelce, who's a great just safety net for Mahomes as his tight end. They have a decent offensive line. Now, the reason why I have them ranked this low, and this might differ from a lot of other people, is their defense is atrocious. Absolutely awful. One of the worst defenses in the NFL. Definitely top 5, bottom 5, my bad. Not a lot of strengths there. Especially after trading away Marcus Peters. I understand he was an attitude issue, and he probably wasn't going to stay in Kansas City anyway. If anything, they did pick up Fuller from the Redskins, who I think is at least a decent up-and-coming CB1. So they have semi-talented, but just, again, not compared to the rest of the NFL. They're very lacking on that end. So I think they're really going to struggle guarding teams. I think they're going to put up a lot of points, but they're going to let teams put up more points. So that's why I think the record's going to be this low. And I'm judging my power rankings really mainly off records. But there are a couple variances, but for the most part, I see this is how the actual end records are going to play out. After them, I'm looking at number 28, the San Francisco 49ers. Again, maybe a pick that a lot of people would disagree with me on, but in my defense, this is still a very young team. Shanahan's a great coach, great offensive mind, but this team is still lacking on the defensive end somewhat. They're still going to struggle there to prevent points being put up on them for as many points as they might score, and quote might, because I don't know if this offense, they're not proven. That's the one thing about this offense, is they might have talent, but it's not proven talent. Garoppolo is a great quarterback talent, but it's just not that proven yet. He doesn't have that proven track record. He has like less than 10 starts on his resume. And I'm not putting that necessarily against him for having a great year. He could have a great statistical year, but in terms of record, I think he's going to struggle with it. He's not Tom Brady for as much as he might think. He's not. And this team is not the Patriots yet. So it's only year 2. 49ers fans, 49er fans should not be that disappointed if their record ends up being bottom five, because again, it's only year 2. They're still working it out, and a top 5 pick next year to add somebody like a Rashawn Gary, or Ed Oliver, or Nick Bosa, that'd be great for this team. I think if you add a Bosa to the 49ers, that makes them even scarier. Definitely ignites a fire in that defense and that defensive line, and I think it'd be another great building block to the team that could compete for many Super Bowls in the next 5 years. Or it's going to take about 3 years and then compete within 5 years. 27, I have the Indianapolis Colts. They have a great coach, Frank Reich, coming from the Eagles in their Super Bowl run. He's a great, again, we're talking about great offensive minds. This is one of the best guys in the business. They have the prototypical quarterback in Andrew Luck. Now, he's obviously coming back from any freak shoulder injury. He's been out for almost 2 years now. But I have a belief that he will come back strong. He is capable. He's one of those quarterbacks that is capable of winning games by himself. Now, you could say that about any NFL quarterback, but him especially, he just has that it factor that if he is on, even if his supporting cast isn't the greatest, he can elevate them. Now, again, you could say that about a lot of elite quarterbacks, but that's what Andrew Luck is. He is an elite quarterback. So put him in that class. He can win a game by himself, and because of that, I could see him lifting that record up from what it would be without him, which would be definitely right there with the Bills at the bottom of the NFL. They have a semi-decent wide receiver 1 in T.Y. Hilton. Their defense is getting better. It's still very shaky. I'm going based solely off their offense, really. Now, they have some good defensive pieces. I'm trying to think of the name of the quarterback. They have Jabal Sheard, good edge rusher. They've picked up a couple quality pieces out there. They still have Davis. No, they don't. They don't have Davis. So their secondaries. Who am I thinking of? He is a safety for them. Did really well last year. Anyway, I will remember his name. But I'm really just basing this off their offense. They have a great offensive line. I think it's gotten a lot better since 3 years ago. And because of that, I think Andrew Luck's going to have a great year. I think T.Y. Hilton's going to have a great year. I think when Marlon Mack returns, he will have a great year. And that offense will win them a handful of games. It's going to keep them out of the bottom 5 in terms of record and power rankings. 26, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Tampa Bay, there's still a lot of question marks around them. Obviously, Jameis Winston is suspended for 4 games. That's not going to help their record. I think they're going to do better with Jameis on the field than off. But Fitzpatrick is a very serviceable backup. They play a strong defense in the opener, New Orleans. I don't think they'll win that game, but they could surprise some people and win a couple games without Jameis. This team has talent, definitely. It's not lacking on talent, but like I said for the Bills and somewhat to a degree the Jets, it's lacking leadership. Jameis Winston is a leader. Now, he's not a great leader, but he's a leader nonetheless. He hasn't led them to anything significant, but he still tries to at least lead, which is at least something you can ask for from a quarterback. Some don't even try. An example would be Jay Cutler, but at least he tries to. But this isn't working. I don't think this coaching staff is going to be there past this year, both them and the Dolphins, these two Florida teams. It's just really, I see it as just a staffing change that needs to be made. I think with the right coach, which was supposed to be Dirk Cater, Jameis Winston can eventually shine. Now, I know it's been a while, but I still have faith in Jameis. He has a lot of natural talent that has yet to been tapped into. And this defense has talent too. I know it's not the greatest, but Kwan Alexander, defensive tackle, Vita Vea, who they drafted, and then obviously Gerald McCoy. They have talent there. Hargreaves, I know he hasn't had the greatest couple of seasons in these past 2 seasons, but there's still talent. So I think that they can surprise some people and win a couple games they probably shouldn't have, but I just don't see it. I really don't see them having the greatest record. Definitely bottom 10. I think they just need a change in coaching, and if they see to it, great. But maybe a change in the quarterback. Maybe it's time to give up on Jameis. I don't think so, but maybe the franchise and the owners do. If they do, it's their call. But I don't. This is based off their record. I don't see him being great. I have him at 26, 25, and some people might disagree with me on this. I have a lot of picks that people would disagree with me on, but isn't that anybody's power rankings? So number 25, I have the Cleveland Browns. This team has a great defense. I think this is going to be. There are a lot of young. It's like 50-50. I'm looking at the bottom 15 teams in the league, and about half of them, their offense can carry their defense to some stunning wins. But again, carrying the defense. And then in some other cases, the defense is going to carry the offense to some stunning wins, and the offense is still a work in progress. So that's the case for the Browns this year. I think Tyrod Taylor is a decent quarterback, but the offense as a whole still needs work. And not even necessarily talent-wise, just practice, repetition-wise. This roster hasn't been together that long. It's pretty new for the most part, especially on offense. That gelling that needs to occur for them to get better and just be more stable and consistent, it'll just happen with time. I don't think this is going to be the greatest offense to start off the gates. They're going to struggle a little bit, even though they have some great receivers in Landry and Gordon, and some great good backs in Hyde, Johnson, and Chubb. They're going to struggle out of the gate, but that defense is what's going to carry them to some W's this year. Garrett. I can't believe I forgot his name, but Garrett Ogba. There we go. Those guys definitely going to get on the quarterback. I believe those two are going to be one of the best pass rushing duos in the league. If they could get a top, I think next year's draft, if they could get one of the edge rushers from there, we're looking at literally one of the most dominant edge rushing teams in the league, and it's surprising to say because it's the Browns, but I still see it that way. Outside of them, they have number 4 overall pick. Man, I know I'm blanking on names tonight. I'm really horrible with names in football. In basketball, I'm a lot better. But they have the number 4 overall pick, cornerback Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. There you go. So I think this defense has potential. I think it has the potential to be like the Jaguars, where the offense is still struggling, getting its act together, but the defense is winning some games that, again, like I said earlier, they probably shouldn't have. So that's why I see them having a better record this year and finishing 25th. The Ravens are going to be my 24th team. Why? Mainly just because of consistency. I think they're going to be a lot more consistent this year. Flacco obviously is a
all the
quarterback
latest and breaking news, podcasts, and live streams, make sure to check out Cal's Call on Twitter, Instagram,
it'll be
Facebook,
interesting to see how
and
they feature him.
Periscope.
And they have some decent wide receivers this year, which is different than you could say for seasons past. They have Crabtree from Oakland, who I think is going to have a great season with Flacco. They have Brown out of from the Cardinals. I think he's going to have a good season. They got rid of Perriman, which was nice to see. At least they just know when to admit they made a mistake. So Perriman's gone. They have a strong offensive line, and their defense is consistent to say the least. So this is a team that's not exciting. It's always one of the least exciting in football. But they'll be better than these bottom teams. They just have that consistency with their coaching staff. They're well coached. They'll at least win a handful of games that won't stun anybody. The Ravens always find a way to pull some out of a hat and just end somebody's playoff hopes, i.e. the Bengals last year. But next, 23 is going to be the Washington Redskins. Now they have Alex Smith as their quarterback and Jordan Reed as their tight end. That's honestly one of the better duos in terms of just natural fits. I think Alex Smith with Travis Kelce was like you could say a dream fit. Like, he loves to pass through tight ends. Travis Kelce was a great pass catching tight end. Jordan Reed is an even better pass catching tight end than Kelce was. I think this is a match made in heaven for Alex Smith and Reed. Both of them can have career years this year, and I'm serious. I know Alex Smith started off hot last year, but he could start off even hotter if he has that repertoire with Reed established. This offensive line is very underrated, and the defensive line as well. Now, the only reason why I have them this low is because really there's just a lot of talent in the NFL this year, and I'm not too sure how. I don't want to say consistent because they have a lot of veterans that provide consistency, but there's just not a lot of players on this roster who are going to jump out of the page and single-handedly win them. Like, I see them winning a lot of games 17-14 or 21-14 14 or 21-17. You know, like just these middle of the pack road and home games that teams just kind of lose on their own. Like maybe the Redskins don't necessarily win the game, the other team lost it, but it's still a win for them nonetheless. So I see them winning around 6 or 7, maybe more than that, but I don't see them upsetting a lot of these talented teams. They're in a hard division this year. Not too hard, but there's still the Giants, there's still the Eagles, and there's still the Cowboys. Cowboys aren't the strongest this year. The Giants are on the rise, and the Eagles are the Eagles, defending NFL champions. So I wouldn't say it's the toughest division in football, but it's up there. So I don't see them just beat. I see them having I don't see them having a great divisional record, and I think it's going to hurt their overall record. Next, 22 is the Seattle Seahawks. You can make a case that the Redskins could go above the Seahawks, but I think Russell Wilson is going to carry this team, like he always does, to a better record than the Redskins. I think he has more potential, obviously, than Alex Smith, and he single-handedly can win a game, unlike Alex Smith. So, looking at the Seahawks, I like Chris Carson a lot. I think he's a strong power back. I think he's actually going to have some really great games this year and make it to the point where a lot of Seahawks fans are questioning why they even had to draft Penny. Penny's going to be a great versatile weapon. I don't think he has the greatest offense to be featured in, with that offensive line still a work in progress, but he can still be a great versatile weapon nonetheless. Carson as the bell cow with Russell Wilson as the quarterback and Doug Baldwin as wide receiver 1 has the potential to somehow upset some better teams and win the games they're supposed to. And that defense is in transition. Thomas, no one knows if he's going to play. He probably will, but he's still holding out, I believe. They have, a decent defensive line, but they've lost a lot of veteran talent, and that's the question mark there. I really like to, in terms of predicting records, I like to go with the veteran talent because at least that's stability and consistency that's proven. It's hard to go with such a young defense that's still in transition, so that's why the Seahawks are this low. Number 21, the Dallas Cowboys. So when you're looking at Dallas, you're looking at Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. And the defense, there's still a lot to be desired. I think Elliott's the only reason why this team is not going to be bottom 5, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's going to be hard for Dak Prescott without Witten to have a consistent presence that can pass-catching presence. I think there's some potential in Allen Hurns, and somehow they might be able to utilize, from the Rams, Tavon Austin in a way that could spark the offense. But outside of Elliott, I just don't that's it. There's just really potential, but there's not really consistency that I could see really happening. Could they surprise a couple teams in some big games? Yes. But the thing is, could they? Yes, but I don't see them doing it, and that's why I have them this low. Ezekiel Elliott's a great back. I think he's going to be the one that puts his team on his shoulders and wins them games. I don't think Prescott's going to be that guy. But, maybe Prescott surprises me, has a decent year, and they end up in the top 15 teams. But for right now, I have them at 21. Number 20 is going to be the Oakland Raiders. Now, they might have more... they have more talent than the 20th position, but I don't see them outperforming the 20th position. I really don't. And this might be really low, and I might end up regretting this, or just looking back and be like, how did I have them this low? Especially with quarterback. He's a great quarterback. But I'm not buying anything coming out of this team. Anything outside of Carr. Lynch, I don't think he's going to have the greatest season. He's too old. I think defenses are able to stop him at this point. Doug Martin, no. I don't think he's a great project. I don't think he's worth it. I don't think he's going to be able to produce like he did in Tampa Bay. He's too inconsistent. That offensive line, again, if you're talking about lines that are in transition, this team got the UCLA offensive tackle Colton Miller this year. They're looking to put him at the left tackle position, Donald Penn, the veteran, at the right tackle position. So there is some potential there for the line, but I think it's still going to be... I think it's going to start off the year... It's going to take a little bit for this offensive line to really gel, especially with Miller at the left tackle position and Penn at the right tackle. But I think with time, this can be one of the better lines in football. I just don't really see it outside of the line and Carr. I don't see his weapons being that great. He has Lynch, Martin, Jordy Nelson and Amari Cooper. I'm not too sold on Amari Cooper. I think he's a great wide receiver wide receiver 2, and an inconsistent wide receiver 1. So that's what they have him as the wide receiver 1, Jordy Nelson at the 2. It has, again, I don't even want to say it has the potential to be that great. I think it has the potential to be adequate, like literally adequate. Their defense, I do not like their defense at all, especially with Matt gone. Obviously, one player can't carry a defense in the top 10 defenses. As you could see last year with Mac, they were still in the bottom 20 in the league. I believe it 23rd or 24th. So Mac single-handedly couldn't do it, and without him, they're going to be even worse off. Now they have a lot of faith in Arden Key and Mo Hurst out of Michigan and LSU respectively. LSU and Michigan respectively. But rookies aren't going to change anything. I really don't. I don't think so. I think they're still going to struggle in pass protection. I think they're still going to struggle with their linebacker core, especially with Matt gone. So, as good as their offense could potentially be, or as adequate as it could be, I don't think it's winning games because I think the defense is going to give up too many points. And Carr is going to win them some games just because of how great he is as a quarterback, but not enough to overcome being the 20th ranked team for me. Past 20, we're going to be looking at number 19, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, some people might think this is too high for them, but I don't think so. They have a great veteran quarterback in Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, when he is healthy, is a great quarterback and can lead his team to wins, as seen with the Vikings last year. Now, the Vikings already had a lot of talent, but Bradford was great in his outings with them. I think he's going to be able to do something with this Arizona Cardinals offense. They have some great weapons in Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, and David Johnson. Those are to me, they're 3 most talented receivers. So we'll see how they do. I like this team. I think it can surprise some people. I think Josh Rosen, I'm not even going to say if, when Sam Bradford eventually sits for a week or two or multiple, Josh Rosen is going to be able to step into his shoes and really produce adequately enough to still win them games. This defense, again, like the Seahawks, is in transition. Lost one of its leaders in Matthew going to Houston, but they still have a good defensive line. I really like Nkemdiche. Robert, again, I don't know if I just totally messed up his pronunciation of his last name. And if you guys don't remember correctly, David Johnson, when healthy, can carry this team to win single-handedly as a running back, which is kind of like a Ezekiel Elliott can, so can David Johnson. Multi-dimensional back, absolutely dominant. Glad I picked him up in fantasy, but even in reality, he's going to be able to produce them some W's. Great young team on the rise. Number 18, I have the Detroit Lions. I think they're consistent enough across the board to really justify this ranking, and yet not elite enough to justify a higher ranking, if that makes sense. Stafford, I love the guy. I think he's a great quarterback. His weapons, though, are a little suspect. They have Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, who I've never been a fan of neither of those players in terms of consistency. Marvin Jones, I do like more than Tate. I've never been the biggest fan of Tate. And then their running back core of Kerryon Johnson, LeGarrette Blount, and Amir Abdullah. It's just a weird fit how all 3 of them fit together. It could work out. It could fail miserably. I have more faith in Johnson than the other 2. I think Blunt's just getting up there. I don't know if he's going to be able to deliver the same way he has the past 2 seasons. And Abdullah, he just fumbles way too much. I remember his rookie season being like, okay, he'll get over this. He'll be a dominant back at some point. But he just never did. He never got over the fumbling issues, and that's plagued him throughout his whole career and really held him back. So because of that, the offense is just consistent enough to beat out these bottom teams, but just too less talented to beat these elite teams. So they're right there in the middle of the pack towards the end of it. And then the defense, I think it was a great hire to get Matt Patricia away from the Patriots. I think he's going to be a great NFL coach, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So him as the head coach, I think he's going to really produce a great defense this year. I love Ansa. I think Tease Tabor, coming out of Florida, had a great year last year. I remember him having such a slow combine 40 time, and people just totally taking that out of proportion and labeling him as like just like almost undraftable. Not even undraftable, but just a lower round prospect, which I think was unfair. Just because you have a slow 40 time doesn't mean you're going to be a bad player. It could show a lack of athleticism, but sometimes football IQ, talent, and heart can make up for that lack of athleticism, and I see that in T. Staver. He's a strong cornerback. They have a good linebacker talent. I really like their young up-and-coming linebacker. I believe he's also from Florida. Anyway, he's very, very, very talented. So they have pieces on the defensive end. And then it's not Hand. It's Robinson out of Alabama on the interior line for the defensive side. Again, a lot of pieces there, and I think Patricia's going to be able to get the most out of all his defensive talent, which is going to help the Lions' case. This might be a little low ranking at the end of the year, but for me, I think it's adequate for them, for the talent that they have. Number 17, the Chicago Bears. Trading for Mack really pushed them up a couple rankings. I think Mack's going to really help that defense. This defense is right up there with the most elite defenses in the league, in my opinion. They have great pass protection. They have a great pass rush. They have a good linebacker core. Everything you could want in a defense, this team has. And they're all still young, which is amazing. It's amazing. And Fangio is apparently one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. Glad Nagy kept him on. The head coach now, Matt Nagy. Nagy, I don't know how to say it, but he's a great offensive mind, and he kept a really great defensive mind on staff. So I think this team can really surprise people. 17 for them is, I think, good. They're too young to make that much noise, but they're too talented to not make any noise. This offense, like I talked about with the Browns earlier, it just needs time to gel. Give it a year or two more, and this is a top 10 team in the league. But for right now, they're at the end of the teens. 16, I have the Tennessee Titans. These late teen picks, they might be low for the last three teams I've mentioned, but this is just where I see the standings really falling into place. The Titans have Mariota. I really like him as a quarterback. They have Corey Davis. I think he has the potential to be an elite wide receiver 1. They have Derrick Henry, who I don't think stat-wise, like fantasy-wise, is going to be the greatest, but production, he might not put up the biggest numbers, but he's going to be able to help them win games. And that offensive line is amazing. I'm a big fan of their offensive line there, especially with Conklin leading the way. Let's see here. Looking at the defense, they hired a great defensive mind. Can't remember his name. Again, I'm really bad with names, but they have some talent there along the defensive line. I'm not even going to try to put myself through this. But there's talent on that defense. Don't know the specific names, but I know the players, and I know the numbers. But that team has all around some good pieces. I keep saying pieces, but it's the only word I can think of. Again, I said this for the offense for the Bears, but I think this is for the roster as a whole, especially with the new coach coming in, Mike Vrabel. There you go. But for Vrabel, it's mainly going to be just gelling this roster together. There's pieces all over. Just put them all together like a puzzle. Figure out where each one is best placed and win some football games. Might not happen this year. It will semi-happen this year, but for them to be elite, I need to see another year of gelling. Next, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a team that's always consistently mediocre, and it proves it with their 15 slot. They're right there in the middle. Right there, almost in the middle. Tennessee Titans are exactly. But at 15, they're almost right there. Andy Dalton, mediocre quarterback. AJ Green, elite wide receiver. Sucks for him, but he's surrounded by mediocrity. Joe Mixon, I think, is going to be top 15 running back, but right there in the teens, just like this team's ranking. He could really surprise a lot of people, but he could also really disappoint a lot of people because there's some high expectations going into this year. Let's see, the defense, great edge. They have some great edge rushers on there, and they have a great cornerback. Again, I'm not even going to try to remember his name, but a great interior line and some good pass protection there. Their linebacker core keeps getting stronger and stronger, so they're right there in the middle of the pack of the NFL. Number 14, the Denver Broncos. This defense is too talented to not win some games. I think Bradley Chubb is going to Definitely have a strong case for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And obviously right next to Von Miller, that's a dominant duo. Definitely one of the top 3 in the league right now as of today. I don't know how well the offense is going to do. Freeman has a lot of expectations going into this year. A lot of people are getting gaining a lot of steam and hype behind him. I don't buy into it that much. I think he's going to not live up to that high of expectations, at least to what people are giving him right now. He'll still do good nonetheless. Not Offensive Rookie of the Year good, but still decent. The offensive line needs work. The secondary still needs some work. And the linebacker core is in transition right now. Same thing with the secondary. Outside of the line, that defense is still in a semi-transition mode. Next, we have number 13, the Green Bay Packers. Now, some people might think this is just absolutely way too low, even lower than some of the 20s. The Packers, I don't see it, guys. I've never been the biggest fan of Davante Adams, and it's not even personally. It's just talent-wise and the ability to win football games. Everybody saw how bad they were without Aaron Rodgers last year. Adding Aaron Rodgers, for as great and amazing as he is not going to make this team a contender. Maybe if they would have gotten Mac, maybe. And I'm not even saying contender, maybe. Like, maybe they would have just made it to the second round of the playoffs. But this is a wild card at best. There's just not enough talent there outside of Rodgers. The defense is still getting better. They need a couple more years together. The offense is there, but the defense still needs some work. Next, number 12, the New York Giants. This is a team that I think is going to have a great bounce back season. They have a great offensive mind at the helm. How I forget these names, I never know, because I'm literally thinking of them minutes beforehand and then forget. They have a great offensive mind and their new head coach. Eli Manning is still capable of managing a team, somewhat managing a team, winning team. Barkley is going to be great. Maybe not right out of the gate, but by the end of the year, we'll be talking about him as Offensive Rookie of the Year. The offensive line got better. They added Nate Solder from the Patriots. Thank goodness, because who they had before, again, blanking on the name, but he was absolutely horrid for the past couple years. So at least you got a better left tackle in the building. Interior line's pretty good. Moving on to the defense. Defense has a lot of pieces. I'm not even worried about their defense. They have some great veteran leaders. Jenkins, Vernon. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But great defensive leadership there in terms of veterans. So I'm not too worried about the Giants. I think they're going to be a top 12 team. I have them at 12. They could outperform that. I don't think they could really severely disappoint me there. There's just a lot of proven talent. The only one that's not proven is Barkley, because he hasn't played a snap in the NFL, but anybody can tell you he's so athletically gifted that he could really make his presence known. And obviously, I didn't mention Odell Beckham Jr., but he's a top 5 wide receiver in the game too. He's going to have a big effect on this season. Number 11, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, not all the people are talking about them, but this team still has Cam Newton. I think when you're talking about quarterbacks who can single-handedly win a game, and like the best of the best at that, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Cam Newton. Like, he's right up there. He really is. He is that good. Because of his ability to run and pass, he might not be the most accurate quarterback, but he's accurate enough to dominate a game. Okay? So I see it that way. I think he's going to lead this team to another great year. Maybe not Super Bowl bound, but definitely somebody who could sneak up on somebody and win a playoff game they had no business winning. So I have them at 11, right on the cusp of being on 10, but there's just two dominant teams in my top 10 to really see them as a top 10 team, despite how great Newton is, despite how great of a season I think DJ Moore is going to have. I think he's going to be a surprise Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate. Looking at the defense, obviously they have Kuechly as the leader there, and looking back at the offense, they have Christian McCaffrey, who's going to have one of the top 10 season for running backs in this league. But their defense is nothing compared to my top 10s, and my number 10 is the Los Angeles Chargers. This defense is way too good, even without Verrett, for them to not be a top 10 team. Veteran quarterback, check. Decent enough offensive line, check. Although they are going to struggle to a degree, especially in the division they're in, with the Broncos being there. So, decent enough offensive line, check. Great. I mean, I'm talking great running back 1 in Melvin Gordon, check. And then great pass rush, linebacker core, and pass protection, all 3 checked. Everything for a top 10 team that needs to be there is there for this Los Angeles team. It sucks that they're missing Henry for the year, but they already picked up Antonio Gates back. So he's back. Henry's out. Just might be enough production from the tight end position to really vault this team to the top 5 by the end of the year. This is definitely a sneaky Super Bowl pick. I have them at 10 right now just because of the talent that's above them. I think they honestly could be 9. I'm looking at my number 9 team, the Steelers. They could be 9, but for right now, I'm going to stick with the Steelers at 9, which goes into my next team, which is Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger, I think this is going to be the year where people start saying he needs to go. This is the last year for him. And then have Mason Rudolph as your quarterback next year. This is a quarterback moving forward for the future. Antonio Brown, obviously dominant. Le'Veon Bell hasn't reported yet, but their backup, James Conner, I think is going to have a great season. Their defense, TJ Watt. They have Hayward on the line. There's some great leaders there, a lot of great talent. They were a top 5 pass protection team last year in terms of holding opponents down, holding opponents down in terms of scoring or passing. Passing offense. I don't know why I'm struggling with that so much. But so I definitely see them having a good to great defense, and there's just too much star power on the offensive end for them to not have a top 10 season. So they're my number 9. But again, I think them and the Chargers are the only 2 teams where I really see them as interchangeable. Like, definitely I could see the Chargers as number 9 just as much as I could see the Steelers there. Number 8, I have the Houston Texans. The Texans, I believe, are going to have a great, possibly Super Bowl run season if the defense stays healthy. And Deshaun Watson. So imagine Deshaun Watson's a defensive player, because if he doesn't stay healthy, this team's not going anywhere. And same goes with the defense. If they don't stay healthy, this team isn't going anywhere. So health permitting, this is an elite team. J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, the linebacker, I don't know how I forget his name. Whitney Marcellus. There you go. And then Tyrann Mathieu. Lot of veteran dominant talent. Might be past their exact prime outside of Clowney, but still dominant nonetheless, and still veteran nonetheless. So this defense has all the makings of a Super Bowl defense, Super Bowl winning defense, just like the Eagles of last year. And the offensive line is just good enough to hopefully, fingers crossed, keep Watson healthy all season and get this team into the playoffs. If health permitting, they are my number 8 team. And again, if they win some surprising playoff games, could be in the Super Bowl. I think any of my top 10 teams could make it to the Super Bowl with some luck, like anything else, just like this. The Eagles with Foles getting on a hot streak in the playoffs last year, and their defense dominating at the right times. With luck, any of my top 10 teams could win the Super Bowl. Even with luck, I don't see any of the teams outside of my top 10. Maybe the Panthers, but outside of them, I don't see any teams surprisingly even getting to the Super Bowl. Number 7 is going to be the New England Patriots. This might seem low to some, but honestly, this is one of the least talented teams I've seen them have in the past couple years. Brady's lost a lot of weapons. It shouldn't matter. He's Tom Brady, and it shouldn't matter because it's Bill Belichick. But they've still lost natural talent, and a lot of it throughout the past couple seasons. They still have Gronk, they still have Brady, and they still have Belichick. That's all that really matters. They'll still make it to the playoffs. They'll still probably make it to the AFC Championship game. But I don't see it. Like, they probably will, but I personally don't see it, so that's why I have them as my number 7. I think this is the year this is the beginning. Then you always hear, like, I hear this every single year. This is the beginning of the end of the Patriots. But if any year was going to be that, it'd be this year, really. And it's said every year, but after everything that happened last year and them losing in the Super Bowl, I think we're looking at the beginning of the end. If they would have won the Super Bowl, maybe I think differently. But with them losing, I think this is the start of a change of the guard in New England. Number 6, I have the defending Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not as good as any of the teams in my top 5. If Wentz comes back and stays elite like he showed last season, which I'm a little iffy on. Not too sure if he can be a top 5 quarterback. A lot of people think he can. I'm not too sure, though. I think there are a lot more, at least 6 or 7 quarterbacks that are better than him. But I don't think this defense is going to live up to what it did last year. I think this is going to be like a Super Bowl high for them this year. They're still having to deal with a lot of injuries, especially with the number 1 wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey, and Jay Ajayi, their number 1 running back. So there's still a lot of injury question marks going into this season. And I really just think that the Super Bowl hype behind them is going to be their undoing. And what kind of helped them win the Super Bowl last year was the sneakiness to the way they do it, to the way they did it. Not a lot of people were looking at them as such a dominant defense until the playoffs rolled around. Because of that, they have a lot of hype going into this year, and that hype is going to be their undoing and going to be their demise. And I don't see them really making it to the Super Bowl again or repeating as Super Bowl champs. Number 5, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this is a team that made the Super Bowl 2 years ago that I could definitely see making it this year. They have the talent, they have the coaching staff, they have the heart, and they have the drive to do it. If any team is going to win the Super Bowl this year, it's any of the teams from my top 5, including these Falcons. They just have way too much talent across the board to not be considered a contender to win the Lombardi Trophy. Matt Ryan is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, no matter what people think, because of the 28-3 blown lead. Devonta Freeman is a great running back too, and Tevin Coleman is one of the best running back. Freeman is running back 1, and Coleman is one of the best running back 2s you could possibly find in the league. And that defense has a lot of great young players in Jones, Trufant, and Beasley. Those are some great leaders on the defensive side. Number 4, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm pretty high on Bortles compared to other people. That's why I see them as the number 4 team. That defense is very dominant. I could see, like, this is the one defense outside of, well, you'll see the next 3. My top 4 between the Jaguars and the next 3 that I'm going to talk about, any of those defenses can completely shut down an elite offense. Like, these are teams that could legitimately shut down even the best of offenses, like the Falcons or the Saints. They could shut down any of these elite offenses. They're just that talented. The Jaguars are probably, to me, the Rams are top heavy, and even though they're top heavy, they're still the best. And the Vikings are just all around dominant. They're just all around, like, just they're too consistent on the defensive end. That's why I have them ranked higher. But the Jaguars, in terms of just X factor, their defense has it. And that's why I think it's the best in football. They might not be the best team overall in football, but their defense is the best in football. So that's why they're my number 4. Their offense has just enough gadget weapons to win them enough games to get them into the AFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl. So that's why they're my number 4. Number 3, I have the New Orleans Saints. They have a great defense that wasn't there in previous years and what's held them back. Now they have Lattimore, they have Jordan, they have their first-round pick from this year, and they have, decent supporting pieces on the defensive side to win them enough games. And obviously the offense is one of the best in football. I think the best in football. Them and the Falcons are the 2 best in football. We're looking at Drew Brees, Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best passers to ever grace an NFL field. We're looking at not only Mark Ingram, but Alvin Kamara as a running back stables. I'm not too high on Kamara this year, but having Ingram, one of the best duos in the league. They have Michael Thomas, who I think is going to end up being a top 4 wide receiver by the time the season's over. And they have Ted Ginn, who's a X factor, and they have Benjamin Watson, who I think is going to have a great season as a tight end there. So, a lot of weapons. I think this team is top 3, definitely. And again, like I said, could be Super Bowl bound. We have the number 2, Vikings, Minnesota. Some people have them as their number 1, and they could be their number 1. I think Kirk Cousins is going to take them possibly to the Super Bowl. I think if anyone's going to do it, if any quarterback could do it, it'd be Cousins, although a lot of people sleep on him. This team is overall just too dominant. There's not a single position I look at them that's a big weakness. They can match up head-to-head with any other team in the league at any position, and that can't be said for a lot of teams. So they're my number 2 this year. They have a great coach in Zimmer, and if anybody's going to hoist the Lombardi Trophy, it's going to be Minnesota. But my number 1 team, and this has to do a lot with star power, but it also has to just do with talent. Like, star power brings talent. And there's just too much of it to deny them as the number one team, especially with everyone being happy with their brand new contract extension. So the Los Angeles Rams are my number one overall team going into my power rankings in this season. Donald, Sue. Why did I say Sue? Sue. Ndamukong Suh. Peters, Talib, Goff, Cooks, Gurley. The list goes on and on. Robert Woods. This is probably the most star-studded team in the NFL has seen, at least in the past 20 to 30 years. Like, there's just so many stars on this team. It can't be underrated, and it can't be overrated. It's so proven. These are proven all-pro players that are going to dominate other teams. And even if they struggle with pass protection in some games, or even if the passing game isn't the greatest some other games, there's enough strengths to outnumber any weaknesses they could ever have on a weekly basis, and that's why they're my number one overall team. For as consistent as consistently dominant as the Vikings are going to be this season, the Rams can beat them. The Rams, when on one, are so much better than the Vikings. Like, honestly, they are so much better talent-wise because of that star power. Because at the end of the day, the Vikings can't put out a product that is better than Suh, Donald, Peters, Talib. Those four by themselves, the Vikings cannot match that. They can come close, but they just can't. And on the offensive side, I think Jared Goff is just the next Matt Ryan in terms of production. He's already shown that he can have a great year last year. Brandin Cooks wouldn't necessarily be a great wide receiver one in my eyes, but having Robert Woods definitely takes a lot of pressure off of Cooks and makes it easier on that offense. So between Cooks, Woods, Goff, Gurley, that team's loaded. And John Kelly is a backup running back who I really like going into the season. Totally loaded. My number one overall team. But feel free, definitely, I'm going to have the article up soon. I just wanted to put out this podcast and video so you guys can hear it first. Definitely check out the article. Leave some comments. Go on our Twitter. When I post the article up there and the podcast up there, leave some comments on Twitter if you guys think any changes. Definitely leave me what you guys would have changed. I think they're solid. I stick by my power rankings. There's only maybe 2 or 3 that I could see switching out, but other than that, I think it's rock solid. I'm not changing my opinion on any of these other teams. I like it the way it is. So definitely hit me back up with some feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys think or your power rankings going into this season. Thank you guys for all the support. I know Mickey wasn't on this video. It's the first time doing it by myself. But I think it went well. I'll definitely be doing this for almost all the articles I have time to post in the upcoming weeks. I'm a busy guy, but I'm going to make time because it's Cal's Call, and I want to give you guys Cal's Call. So thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great night. Thank you guys for all the support. Definitely make sure to check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, obviously the website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that good stuff. Make sure to check us out on, and thank you guys for all the support. And thank you I'm Joseph Callamore, and thank you for listening to Cal's Call.
For all the latest and breaking news, podcasts, and live streams, make sure to check out Cal's Call on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Periscope.